What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, man. So it's been a minute since I talked about older iPhones in general. I think the last video, I don't even know the last video I made. I've been talking so much about iOS 13 and also the Samsung Galaxy Note 10 and Note 10 Plus that I've kind of, went away from my core a little bit now. And I've seen this circumstance a lot, and it's not a bad thing at all. Like, I think this is a very, very good thing, When I'm walking down the street, when I'm looking at people, or even like talking to some of my friends, I see a lot of them still have older iPhones. They're all rocking like an iPhone 7 or iPhone 6s. Very rarely do I see an iPhone 5s or SE, but the SE even I've seen a couple of times though, and ultimately, even with the new iPhones coming out, I think older iPhones are, getting more and more popular than even some of the newer ones, and we see that by the sales numbers. We see that Apple, and also a lot of other phone manufacturers, they're selling less and less phones every year. And I think that's mostly because people are holding on to their older iPhones or phones in general, and they're also buying used technology, which I love. I love that so much. We should go support the used technology field. But more specifically looking at the iPhones, why do they still hold up more than, a lot of other phones in the market? And I think a lot of that has to do with the price. Obviously, a lot of people don't want to spend the mad amount of money of getting an iPhone 10 or 10s or 10s Max or 10R. They would rather go spend less money on a phone that's, just as comparable. And that also has a lot to do with the speed and performance of a device. Now, something like an iPhone 7, this is not even that super old in my opinion. Apple's still selling it in their Apple stores. I don't know what happened to my controls there. But even a phone like an iPhone 7 is still super fast in my opinion. Even I just did a multi-core score and you can see 100 and almost 180,000. That's still very, very high. Now, obviously benchmarks aren't everything, but sometimes they do mean something. And I find that super, super cool. You have pretty much all the capabilities on this phone that you do have on an iPhone 10 or a 10s Max, to be honest. And so that's a humongous thing right there. Another small little slight thing that I've seen, but a reason why people look at something like an iPhone 7, for example, and the 7 Plus, the storage variants of the 7 and 7 Plus actually are, pretty similar to what we have nowadays. So the iPhone XS Max, as you know, goes up to 512 and the iPhone XS does the same thing. But on the iPhone 7 Plus, the storage variants actually started with 32, then it went up to 64, 128, and then 256. The Max model was 256, and that's a huge phone. I mean, that's a phone with a lot of value and storage within it. So that's a huge reason why people, still look at something like a 7 Plus, even though it doesn't have that much expandable storage. The max storage variant is 256 gigs, which is still a lot of memory, even for the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus. These go up to 128, which we're kind of used to by now, but that's still a lot of memory in my opinion. And that's something a lot of people don't really recognize when people look at older technology. The storage variants within these phones is super necessary. I mean, dude, people are spending tons of money on the 512 gig variant on the iPhone XS and XS Max, so people can save a ton of money, get half the storage, I understand, but spend way less than half the price on these phones. Now, this next thing is something that I started thinking about after I heard about the removal of Force Touch. So once I heard that was coming out, I was like, okay, that's a huge reason to pick up an older phone. But I think it's a little bit deeper than that, because the reason why Apple was removing Force Touch even to begin with was because most people didn't even know about it and they didn't even care about it. They didn't use it. So that made me think that yes, Force Touch is cool on older phones, but what's even more important than that, especially looking at used technology, is that I don't think most people care about a notchless phone or a phone without a notch or an OLED display or gestures or Face ID or anything. They just want a phone to be able to do their tasks with and go on and move on with their life. I honestly think that's what most people want to do. I know someone like me, I mean, I can look at the display and be like, man, I want a better phone, I want this and that, I want an OLED display, I want this. But for the majority of people, I don't think they really care. And that's why the iPhone XR really popped off. A lot of people looked at this phone and they were like, oh my god, this is such a nice phone. And they would go to the stores or whatever and they would see that it has a perfectly fine display, and that's that. But even though to us, to our technology purists or whatever, we would see and we'd be like, this isn't the best display, but for most people, they don't care. So I think that has a lot to do with why people pick up older technology even more. It's because they don't care about the latest and greatest and if it has this or that. They just care if a phone works and if it can do its job. And on top of that, still getting software updates. That's a super important thing too. I think a majority of people care more about software updates than hardware updates and what the camera can do or whatnot, because people look at it and they're like, okay, it's a good camera, that's it, they're going to move on with their life. And I think that's why most people are still holding on to their phones, because of the software updates, because of the price to keep the phone versus the update, the storage variants and all of that. And even on top of that, the batteries are still very good. Apple made it really, really easy for us last year to replace the batteries. So a lot of the phones and even the phones in used world have pretty decent sized batteries still. They haven't degraded too much because they actually went and most probably replaced it last year like I did. So those are a couple reasons as to why I think the older iPhones are still holding up, why they're still super, super important. The speed is awesome on these, that literally everything is so good. It's like, if you don't really care about having the latest and greatest, the used technology will still hold up. And we already knew that, but I think kind of justifying it and why I think there's still so many older iPhones out there is actually due to the reasons of what I said. But there's probably things I'm overlooking, but that is pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section below. Hit that like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys could hit that. Also, check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel. All those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate if you guys could check it out. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.